Let's find out how AI reviews my introduction to the diary video.
And today we've got a fascinating one. We're going to be looking at the story of a Soviet immigrant
Mm-hmm.
who came to the U.S. back in 1989. You guys sent us his video diary introduction.
Yep.
And let me tell you, there is some seriously intriguing stuff in there.
It's pretty wild.
We're talking cutting-edge science.
Oh, yeah.
A whole country, like on the verge of collapse.
Definitely a pivotal moment in history.
And an immigration law.
Right.
That honestly changed the lives of so many people.
Absolutely. This is going to be a deep dive to remember, that's for sure. And, right off the bat, what strikes me about this scientist is his desire to remain anonymous. He kind of lays it all out in his intro video diary.
Yeah, and he specifically mentions all the advancements in AI
He does. It's interesting.
and how that makes anonymity pretty tricky these days. It's almost like he's acknowledging this sort of tension
That
between wanting to share his story, but also wanting to keep his identity hidden.
It's a real dilemma, isn't it? Especially in today's world. I mean, think about it. How much can we really keep private anymore?
Exactly, exactly. So to really kick things off, can you give us a bit of background on this mysterious scientist?
Well, I did some digging, turned to our good friend ChatGPT.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And it turns out this guy, he's a pretty big deal in virology, like a real pioneer. He's done some groundbreaking work, particularly with a human virus called SHV. I mean, we're talking major contributions to diagnostics and vaccine development.
Wow, so this is not just some random scientist.
Not at all.
This is somebody who's really made an impact in his field.
Exactly.
So ChatGPT gave you that info, huh? What specifically did it tell you about his work with this SHV virus?
So a lot of his research focused on something called the expression of SHV proteins, right? Which basically means figuring out how these proteins get made inside the cells that the virus infects. It's really crucial stuff for understanding how the virus works and how to target it with treatments and vaccines.
I see, I see. And his work was significant enough to earn him patents, right?
Right. Multiple patents, actually.
Can you kind of break down what those patents were for and why they were such a big deal?
Yeah, so a lot of his patents focused on methods for producing these things called recombinant proteins.
Okay.
Think of them like lab-created proteins that are basically identical to the ones the SHV virus makes. This technology was like revolutionary at the time.
Mm.
It allowed scientists to create much more accurate diagnostic tools to identify SHV infections and was a huge leap forward in developing potential vaccines to combat the virus. This guy, he was really on the cutting edge of public health.
It's incredible, huh? That all this amazing scientific work was happening right as the Soviet Union was falling apart.
Yeah.
It makes his decision to immigrate to the U.S. even more interesting.
You're telling me.
In his video, he mentions the collapse of the USSR.
Right.
And the state of scientific research. It was all kind of going downhill. Can you paint us a picture of what it was like for scientists over there in the late 80s?
It was tough. Imagine a system struggling to even support its researchers, funding drying up left and right, resources becoming scarce, fewer and fewer opportunities. It was definitely a time of great uncertainty. For someone like our scientists, someone so dedicated to pushing the boundaries of science, it must have been incredibly frustrating and disheartening to try to continue his work in that environment.
So in the middle of all that chaos, he sets his sights on the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, can you blame him?
No, not at all. But how does someone even begin to immigrate during such a turbulent period?
Well, this is where the 1990 Immigration Act comes in.
This is a big one.
Huge GE. President George H.W. Bush signed it into law, and it created this special visa category called the EB-1.
Okay.
Specifically for people with extraordinary abilities. We're talking scientists, artists, athletes, business leaders, the cream of the crop.
Oh, wow. So this 1990 Immigration Act, it seems like it played a huge role in his journey to the U.S.
It is.
Can you explain a little more about how this law sort of opened doors for people like him?
Well, the idea behind the law was that attracting top talent from all over the world would benefit the U.S. And you know what? They were right.
Yeah.
This EB-1 visa, it created a clear pathway for these individuals and their families to get permanent residency. It gave them a shot at pursuing their dreams in a country that valued their expertise.
Wow, that's amazing. So here we have this brilliant scientist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Escaping a collapsing scientific system, finding a new home in the U.S. thanks to this incredibly forward-thinking immigration law.
Right.
And now he's sharing his story with the world, all while trying to navigate the challenges of anonymity in the digital age.
Exactly. It's a fascinating story on so many levels.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like,
Huh.
What if this scientist was immigrating today with all the crazy advancements we have in AI and facial recognition, all that stuff? Would he even have been able to remain anonymous? Would he have had to choose between protecting his privacy and pursuing his scientific passions?
That's a really good question, one we may never have the answer to. I think what this deep dive ultimately shows us is how personal ambition is so deeply intertwined with world events and scientific progress, and how the choices we make can be influenced by forces far beyond our control.
Absolutely, and it makes you appreciate the stories of those who came before us and the challenges they faced. Thanks for diving into this one with me.
Of course, always a pleasure.